Hey guys, it's Drax. In February 2014, 3 faction-specific Infiltrator sniper type weapons were added to the game. This was the Phase Shift, the Railjack and the Trap. These weapons were one of the last parting gifts that SOE gave us before they sold us to Daybreak. The Railjack was disliked by NC snipers originally as it had a 0.2 second delay thrown on it just before it went live, and still does, which makes it different than any other sniper available. Snipers were often missing shots because they found the trigger to fire timing different, although certain players who had previously struggled with sniping found this gun actually worked for them. This weapon never received any changes to the delay as it was an intended charge feature, giving the weapon better velocity than any other in its class. The Phase Shift left the VS community divided. Half of them found it fun to use and the other half didn't know how to use it. A sniper rifle with a heat mechanic, it could be charged to hit like a bolt action or fired quickly like a semi-auto. With the January update, the Phase Shift received 2 fire modes dividing the bolt action and semi-auto. This overall has gone down well and the use of the weapon seems to be increasing. And then we have the Trap, a weapon that claimed to be a sniper rifle and still does, but generally fit a scout or battle rifle's profile better. It originally came with 3 fire modes, semi-auto, 2x and 3x burst. The accuracy was pretty horrible and the mag size was too small. The semi-auto fire mode was later ditched, the mag size was bumped up to 21, the accuracy was improved, and the most recent buff has made the 2-round burst fire more accurate range. So can this weapon now be classed as good, or is it still a trap? Here's my review. So starting at the beginning, I remember the day the Trap was added. At the time I was a heavy main, like many players, playing TR on the Emerald server pretty much every day. I logged into the game and actually decided to trial the Trap. I reckon I used it for about 20 minutes before deciding it indeed was a trap.
It's a trap!
We originally called it the Crap, and when looking at the other faction's new weapons you often heard a TR player say, "We got the worst one." The Railjack had better velocity and the Phase Shift had no drop. The Trap, it had multiple fire modes.
Yeah, boy!
So over 2 years passed and under the new ownership of Daybreak Games, the Trap finally received a buff in October 2016. So let's see the changes. Overall, these changes gave the Trap user better accuracy through easier to control recoil. A semi-auto fire mode was removed as I mentioned in the intro, as it just wasn't competitive against other semi-auto rifles considering its damage, and the mag size and capacity went up, enhancing survivability and longer use. Now I actually only came back to playing PlanetSide a month after this change took place, so that was about 5 months ago, and my first thought was definitely not to harass the Trap. I did however start playing Infiltrator, something I had not done much of in the past, and this led me on to using the Trap about 2 months ago. A friend at the time had just harassed it and he loved it, so I was curious to see why he was raving about a weapon which was once named the Crap. It took me a little while to adjust to the playstyle. I can even remember after a short time of using it saying this weapon still sucks, but once I got the playstyle right I was reigning in kills. One of the best fights I remember were enemies come up the hill on the side of Sarah Listening Sea Point. I positioned myself at medium range, waited for the heads to pop over and picked them off one by one, mostly using the free burst mode. I got the gold medal fairly quickly using the tactic of keeping myself at this medium range. It did have the 2x burst for longer ranges, but I felt this wasn't effective enough. Then a test server update popped up and the Trap was getting a buff to its 2-round burst fire mode. The dev note read, "These adjustments should increase the range and the accuracy on the 2 bursts and further separate it from the 3 burst." So I decided to postpone my Trap racks till after these buffs went live, which they did a few weeks after. I picked up the weapon again knowing it would now excel on its 2-round burst fire mode, which it did indeed. Hitting the head 4 times on enemies while using this fire mode had now become so much easier. Before the second shot on the burst would scatter too far from the first, but this change now brought them in close proximity to each other. You could also repeatedly fire without affecting the bloom too much. The free burst still had a purpose for medium range fights, but now the 2 had increased accuracy at all ranges. So maybe you can see at this point that the review for this weapon is mostly a positive one. I think some of you may even be shocked after my track shot review, but honestly I'd rather use the Trap.
You what, mate?
So let's talk about some stats and how to use. With 184 damage up to 15 meters combined with its 469 RPM on its free burst fire mode, we get an approximate time to kill of 0.69 seconds but because it is a burst weapon, it will realistically take you around the 1 second mark, with most targets running nanowave. But if you factor in the average player's accuracy, I estimate it would take between 3 to 4 seconds, so kill time here isn't the best and is beaten by most weapons. However, the main good point for this weapon is that it takes 6 shots to the body and 3 shots to the head to kill, and this remains the same even out to the 85 meters where it reaches its minimum damage of 167. So like a sniper rifle, I would say your best engagement ranges are between those numbers. I would not advise getting in a fight with targets under 15 meters as their kill time will beat yours, but over a greater distance the accuracy of the trap can prevail. As a general rule, keep to the 3 round burst up to around 30 meters, and anything over that switch to the 2 round burst. For optics, I have used the 1x reflex scope to keep the bursted fire shots close together by reducing recoil. I did use a 2x scope for a short time, but it was not as effective. Vertical recoil and the first shot recoil multiplier is fairly low and easy to control. It does have a small amount of horizontal recoil and tolerance, so I found the foregrip is effective at removing this, so that is my recommendation for the rail. I did unlock the suppressor, but felt it took too much away from the weapon's velocity and was very situational. So that's the general stats, attachments and playstyle for the weapon. I will say this is a versatile weapon which makes the sniper directives a bit more fun, so I'm glad it was classed as a sniper rifle. Since it's not great in CQC, I would advise running a secondary that you are comfortable killing with often. Most of the TR pistols are pretty good, including the starter TX1 repeater when combined with a laser sight. I mainly use the Inquisitor throughout my racks, but feel something with a higher rate of fire would work better. When using the trap, remember like all weapons, try to hit the head. Seeing as this is an accuracy weapon, headshots can be landed consistently, especially on the 2 burst setting. So that is it for this review. Thinking back to how this weapon originally felt, I never thought I would say these words, but I recommend the trap. Hopefully you found this video helpful and informative. If you haven't used the trap in a while, give it a go using the tips in this video and you just might like it. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.